Welcome back, Sebastian here. So today I'm going to be talking about Williams and what their 2025 F1 season has in store. So first, taking a look at their team and some of the people involved, not kind of from outside the racing side, just from their two drivers and such. So teams based in Grove in the UK. Of course, they've been there for their entire existence in F1 since the mid 1970s. Their current team principal, James Vowles, uh, fairly new, fairly young, I would say as well, in terms of F1 team principal. He's been in the job for only a couple years, but I think he's done a pretty good job in the time that he's been there. Chief Technical Officer Pat Fry and their engine for this year, as well as for many years in the future, is the Mercedes engine. Now, taking a look at some of their stats from 2025, or not from 2025, 2024. So looking at points, only 17 this past season, which ranks ninth in the Constructors' Championship. Average pole gap as well, 1.233 seconds, which again ranks ninth, so not fantastic, and definitely a step back in performance compared to 2023 as a whole. Average minimum finishing position, 12.08, which again ranks ninth. So over the course of the whole season, they were kind of ninth across the board. But for, I would say, the first 2/3 of the season, they were probably eighth. They were definitely, I would say, competitive or slightly better than the Alpine. But Alpine did improve quite a bit towards the end of the season, and those results at the Brazilian Grand Prix definitely helped them out quite a bit. Now, when you look at Williams's time last 5 seasons or so, you can see that they have been, gradually improving slowly but surely. Of course, 2019 was their worst season in, recent memory, or arguably their worst season in the team's history, even. And it's been a very slow kind of rebuild from that. They did get better, 2020 to 2021, but new regulations 2022, not so great start there, and they definitely took a bit of a step back 2022 with the start of the ground effect regulations. 2023, again, I think a little bit, of a surprise in terms of the fact that they were, quite a bit better than many, I think even the team themselves thought they would be. But I think 2025 or 2024 is where things kind of went back to kind of where they expected to be, not necessarily last, but definitely towards the bottom of the Constructors' Championship. So you can kind of see on the graph, there's a bit of a step back 2023 to 2024. Now, 2025, I think, is a bit of an interesting spot for the team. It's last year of this current set of regulations, so for a smaller team, doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to invest a ton of money, especially in season towards upgrades and development for the 2025 cars. Realistically, they're not really going to be competing for the Constructors' Championship, let's say. But that being said, 2026 definitely provides a massive opportunity for them to kind of, make a big step up back, even to being like, let's say, a true midfield team, or even, a low front running team, much like the team did about a decade ago, from 2013 to 2014, when they went from being ninth in the Constructors' Championship to being third in the Constructors' Championship at the start of the turbo hybrid era. So this is a team that might pull a Haas in 2021, where they basically just absolutely nothing with the car. They just basically just launched the car, started the season, and that is it. They have talked as well. I know James Vowles has also talked quite a bit about updating the facilities and the fact that this is a team that has not made a whole lot of capital investments into the factory and helping make the team a bit more modern, and that's something that I think is holding them back a bit. Last winter in particular, James Vowles talked about how they were still keeping track of parts up in Excel spreadsheets, and they didn't really have any proper system of managing their parts and where things were in production. So just doing that this past 2 winters ago, at this point, was a big deal for them. Unfortunately, in 2024, they had quite a few crashes between all three of their drivers, Albon, Colapinto, and Sargent, and I think that did eat up quite a bit of their budget for the season. So I think they were not able to spend as much money developing this year's car as they perhaps would have liked. So that's something that we may see as well. Perhaps them and Sauber will be the two teams fighting it out for those bottom two positions in the Constructors' Championship. But That being said, I think this is a team that, historically not, obviously they've had very, very high heights in the 80s, 90s, championships and such. So again, if you're going to planning on working back towards that kind of level, it'll take, you still have a long, long way to go. Now, taking a look at some of that history, here are the top 10 drivers in Williams' history by both Grand Prix starts and by podium. So number one, Nigel Mansell, a bit of a surprise for me there, although I guess I'm a little bit too young to have been around for, Mansell's Williams era. So 95 starts for Williams. For Mansell, number two, Ralf Schumacher, 94. Third, Riccardo Patrese with 81. Fourth, Felipe Massa, 78. Fifth, Bottas, 77. Sixth, Rosberg, 70. Seventh, Montoya, with 68. And then eighth, one of their current drivers, Alex Albon, with 66 starts. So by the end of the season, 24 races, Albon should be up to 90. So that would be, third all time for Williams. Ninth, Hill with 65, and then 10th, Keke Rosberg with 62 starts. When you look at podiums for this team, of course, no Albon to be found anywhere on this list. As his tenure at Williams, the team's been pretty poor. But for podiums, Mansell leads that list as well with 43. Second, Damon Hill with 40. Third, Patrese 24. Fourth, Montoya with 23. Fifth, Jones 22. Sixth, Piquet 21. Seventh, Villeneuve 21. And then eighth, Schumacher also in 21. Although, so really all three tied for sixth there. Ninth, Carlos Reutemann with 16, and then Keke Rosberg in 10th with 15 podiums. Now, taking a look at their two drivers for this season, Carlos Sainz Jr. and Alexander Albon. So for Sainz, he was, of course, the big coup for Williams signing him in the summer of 2024. Really, it was definitely seen as a big surprise last summer. For most of the first half of 2024, all of Sainz's links were with Audi, realistically, and Audi was, seen as a team, Audi/Sauber was seen as the team that was pushing hardest for him. But Sainz signed with Williams. Interesting move. I don't think it's going to be, I would say, productive in terms of, podiums and wins and such, but I do think it could be a really interesting project for him. But for Sainz, 30 years of age, this is going to be his 11th season in Formula One, 206 starts as of this point, and 1,272.5 points. His career best in the championship is fifth, something that he's achieved three times in 2021, 2023, and this past season, 2024. He will, of course, be joined by current driver who's been there since the start of 2022, Alex Albon. Country, Thailand. He's born in London, raised in the UK, but does choose to represent Thailand in F1. 28 years of age, so 2 years younger than Sainz, and this is going to be his sixth season in F1. 104 starts to his name with 240 points. And his career best in the Drivers' Championship is seventh, and that was achieved in his one full season at Red Bull Racing in 2020. I think a really, really interesting driver lineup. Williams. This is going to be a really interesting battle between a driver who's basically been at the front of the grid for the last 4 years. His stock's been very, very high, basically the highest it's ever been at his career, with a guy who's basically been rebuilding his reputation after his really poor end to his time at Red Bull. And at this point, Albon's had, two really, really poor teammates at Williams and Sargent and Latifi. Colapinto was, I think, surprisingly quite competitive with him, and I think that did give quite a few, warning signs as well. Because if a rookie can be that close to you, with very little testing, thrown in mid-season, it does, raise some red flags and some question marks about that driver. So I do think this is going to be a really big year for Albon in terms of, kind of deciding, where exactly is he in the F1 pecking order? Is he on the level of Carlos Sainz? Does he deserve to be in a front-running seat? Or perhaps is he, if Sainz, beats him quite heavily, it would suggest perhaps that Albon's not quite on the same level of those drivers, and perhaps he's closer to being, in the midfield, level. So again, I think this is going to be a really big season to kind of decide, where exactly what kind of driver Albon has developed into. Has he gotten a lot better the last couple of years, or has it just been that his teammates have been so weak that it just makes him look that much stronger in comparison? Now, this is one of the few driver lineups that is one a new set of teammates, so drivers who weren't together this last season, and 2, a set of lineup with no rookie. So we do actually have quite a bit of data to go off of. So for the quality and race model predictions, it is actually quite interesting. So modified race score for Sainz 1.73, for Albon 1.64, and again, this is using the backmarker model as a basis, equations as a basis. So percentage of team points, it expects Sainz to get about 52, so 52-48 split. Points difference, 0.35. So that's very, very small. So imagine if the team total scores 15 points. That would be like if Sainz scored 8 and Albon scored 7. Finishing position difference, 0.1, so very, very small there. And then median qualifying delta, 0.015 in Sainz's favor. So it predicts Sainz to just out-qualify Albon, but with a very, very small margin. So again, the models, both for the race one and quali one, do have Sainz ahead of Albon, but very, very close between the two drivers. So I think it's going to be very, very interesting to see how this goes. Sainz, I do think, is a little bit underrated in both models. And I think Albon is perhaps either a little high or perhaps, just right. So again, I think this will be, a really interesting recalibration of the model using the Sainz and Albon teammate data for this season. Anyway, I think for Williams, I think expectations are again going to be pretty low for this season. And again, I think for a neutral observer, seeing how the head-to-head battle between Sainz and Albon goes, seeing how Sainz embeds himself in a new team, I think will be kind of the big talking points for Williams in 2025. So there you go. That's all for my preview of Williams' 2025 season. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.